advisors by far do not ever participate in, and that is on not just radio, because you could have 30, 60, 90-second ads, but we're talking about being a radio host, an hour show once a week, and we do it with a co-host. Um, I did it live for 11 years on a show called Your Money Matters, and I've done it now for going on 3 years with Retirement Boss Radio. And Steve, I hate to even say this, but you have weeks like this. Last week um, show, I hope to always get at least two appointments per show. If it's three, that's great. We had 8 calls that came in, and we got 6 set appointments. And that doesn't happen too often that there's that many, but I mean 6 set appointments.
At
And
the
I
heat of
said,
the
okay,
summer.
yeah, and yeah, just and why I can't tell you. I mean, it just perks some interest. But the name of our game is getting in front of people face to face and having appointments. And that's exactly what a radio show does. It gives you credibility. It brands your name. And the reason the big boys, like of course Rush Limbaugh's deceased now, but the people who took over, or Dave Ramsey, Kim Commando, Sean Hannity, they're on radio, and the reason is because the advertisers pay a lot of money to go on in and to have their advertisement come up. Our advertisement is ourselves educating the public about pre-retired or just retired planning. That's i.e. Retirement Boss Radio. And that Retirement Boss Radio take charge of your money. That name and slogan, they are trademarked, and we're using IAMS as our kind of our distribution center, the marketing center, and we handle that here in our office. Lynn, we have 3 administrators, but Lynn Feldhauser is our main administrator that works with all of our Retirement Boss Radio folks. So let's go through and kind of give you an idea of why radio. And this is about a 10-minute webinar, so this is not going to take it's not going to take very long. Okay, I appreciate you, everybody being on the webinar with us today. But why consider being a radio host? First of all, radio reaches more Americans than any other platform, including smartphone, TV, and personal computer. That's a wild fact, but it is true. Median age is 61. That's perfect age, right in that Social Security pre-retired age. Reaches an upscale officer. 93% of the people with household income of 75,000 or more listen to radio 12 hours a week. Younger people might be more podcasts, but older folks that's from 55 and over like radio, talk radio. Talk radio is hot, and it really solidifies you as an expert more than seminar and other kind of marketing. A lot of top names on radio, they're doing it because of the bottom line. So I will just go through real quickly how Retirement Boss Radio works. Let's say, first of all, you need to live in the vicinity of a metropolitan area that has 100,000 more of population of the metro area. So suburbs, etc., is 100,000 or more. If it's under 100,000, it gets to be hard to have to get the return on your investment because not enough people are listening to the show. Okay. So if we don't have a show in your area already, which there's many areas, not all, but many areas open, then we have a media buyer, and he can negotiate better pricing than when you can by far. I know that because I had it happen to me personally when I was finding a station in Omaha, Nebraska. We have an office in Omaha, office in my hometown, about 30 miles outside of Fremont. But he did a much better price, negotiated a much better deal. And so that media buyer's been in business for 25 years. His family in the radio business, buying radio stations, which he does not do. He's a media buyer, but over 60 years in the business. Grandpa, his dad, and himself. Over 750 shows he has that he's purchased radio or TV time for, media time for. He's big operator, and they do a great job. His team does a great job of negotiating us the best pricing for radio airtime. Second thing is, after we find that right station, the right time slot, the right pricing, that's about half the time we can and half the time we can't. Then what happens is it's the production company, and they supply us with a co-host, like I recorded this morning, and the co-host we use the same co-host every time. He's extremely good at what he does, very knowledgeable now within the financial field, but also just in radio in general. Very comfortable at what he does. He's the color guy. Makes us look good. He puts the spotlight off of him and gives us the spotlight, which is that's what a true color guy does. And they also edit it, mix it. If there's mistakes, they take them out. It's pre-recorded, so when it's recorded, you can go in and say, "Hey, stop! I want to do this over again," which I did several times today. They get it to exactly an hour, and then they air it. Now, what's interesting is we only record for a half an hour, and we pick up a half an hour show from 4 weeks before. And the reason we do that, most people don't listen to the entire show. Okay, they listen only 10 minutes or 15 minutes when they're driving somewhere and they're in the shop or whatever it happens to be. That saves us $1,000 on production costs, which is a big deal. Then when people call in for the offers, so in our show we have 4 sets of offers. We use a toll-free number that ends in 2677, which is BOSS for boss. Retirement Boss Radio 2677 boss. They remember that, and they call in from the phone number. So it's kind of the old-fashioned way. Goes into an inbound call center. This was hard to find, but they're very good. High touch. They got the script. The basic script is when they call in, hey, let's get you on Dave's calendar. That's it. And their calendar, they have a calendar that syncs with mine. It costs about $10 a month. It's syncing calendars, and they don't know the name of my appointments, or if I want to take off on Friday afternoons for golf, but they know that it's just blocked off and they can't mark an appointment at that time period. And then I coach. If you don't know Social Security, I'm going to coach you up on Social Security. The reason there's no cost to you for the 3 sessions is because IAMS, Insurance Agency Marketing Services, Steve Murray, President and CEO, started the webinar today. Talked a little bit about IAMS, the benefit of IAMS, but they pay me to coach you, so it's a win-win situation. And knowing Social Security, it's about a third of all of the calls that come in from Retirement Boss Radio have to do with Social Security. But I listen to, I mean, you get, there's all the kind of do's and don'ts of radio. In fact, if you go to retirementbossradio.com, www.retirementbossradio.com, that's our website. You'll have the current, within a couple, 2-3 weeks of current recordings. You'll also have there's a white paper on that, and just a lot of good information on general information, why radio plays such an important part to my marketing and a lot of other people with IAMS. If you have any questions at all, just type them on in, okay? So what happens is when the call center gets an appointment, they will type in some information like here, turning 59 soon, hasn't settled on someone yet, meaning an advisor. He has a 401 figure. It was just under $1 million. Also had questions about Social Security. Yeah, that was back actually in March of 19, so a little over 3 years ago. So what happens here is that it's the volume that's out there listing, and we're giving a lot of great general finance. So we're not talking specifically about annuities or specifically about wealth management or stocks or anything like that. We're talking about much more general terms. Like morning. One of the things I always touch base though, because with Social Security, and that's why we coach you up. But here's segment 1. We talk about the bullet points: create a financial plan, get out of debt, create tax deferred sources, asset allocation of financial strategies. Second segment is what is loss of purchasing power. All talks about inflation, compounding effective inflation, where you growth to stay up with inflation, and Social Security cost of living, which was 5.9, maybe well over 7% when we find out in October of this year for 2023. So you can tell we're not talking about specific investments. This is not a sell. This is educating people, and then we have real strong closes. But you get this radio show setting, this call setting page or call setting information, that gets emailed to us right away. So like my show's at 12 o'clock on Sunday, and let's say I'm golfing after church, and boom, I hear my phone go off. Boom, during 12 to 1, yeah, that's a call coming on in of an appointment set. It's like Christmas, Christmas in July. If you have any questions whatsoever, certainly type them on in. I'll be more than happy to handle those. Remember I said www.retirementbossradio.com? Yeah, it's a real good website that we have together. So cost, $3,000 to $4,000 average, could be a little less, could be a little more. If it's a great big huge city like Chicago or New York, LA, Houston, you know, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, no doubt Dallas, no doubt it's going to be more because there's so many more people there. So if I was in a big city, I would pay up to do it because you're just going to get that many more calls. Just think in Omaha, Nebraska, I got 6 set appointments, not just 6 calls, not just six lead generation. I have set appointments that people that want to talk to me. So I don't have to go on out. We just call them on Monday morning and verify all the appointments, which is really, really nice. Our location's available. I train, I coach. Jay Pimper. That's what I do from Lazarus Coaching. Studio in a box costs about 235, $40. A microphone, professional headphones, little professional sound box. We supply the software. You can record right from your own office, from your home, from your car if it has Wi-Fi. But the end result is we want it to sound great. Al Jolson, an old actor, said, "I'd like to do radio just like pictures leave the imperfect stuff on the cutting room floor." Well, you know what? We can do that because it's recorded. My first 3 years were live, or excuse me, 11 years were live. This is recorded. And I did about 11 or 12 years in between on something called the closing market bell, kind of Paul Harvey in the news. I did a quote, current information, etc. Steve, I'll turn this over to you real quick. If Steve
Thanks,
is there.
Dave.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so I did just put up the Retirement Boss Radio website, and there's some good information there. You got that nice little white paper that'll talk about radio success and a couple ideas there. But I think the thing that you will likely find most interesting here is down at the bottom where you can hear recordings of the radio show. You can see David mentioned he records them in half-hour segments. The radio shows are an hour long, so 2 segments makes up the total hour. So if you wanted to listen to see how the radio sounds, and this goes all the way from the one that you just did this past weekend,
Yep.
and I think you go back a couple years or so. So you can kind of listen to what a radio show sounds like, which I think would be beneficial to you. I'm going to throw up a poll right now, and then we're going to answer a number of questions that have come up. So let me get this. So if you have interest in chatting a little bit more with Dave, more specifically about your area, just simply put yes on that poll. Or if you have other questions before you make any decisions, I know there are some questions here, so let's try and get to those while you're answering that poll. So Dave, question number 1. So who coaches on radio, and if there's questions on the subject matter, does that ever come up from your current people? Like,
Yeah,
I
it
know
comes up once in a while. Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, they call me. Just call me because I'm doing the same exact show you're doing. And so, you know what though? You've got to put a little time in, Steve, to really be good at this. It's like anybody. You got to rehearse. You got to practice. So I take anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour every single week. I go through my show notes. I understand them. Like my quotes, like I always put of who the person was and what his background was. It's just like we have a whole segment on inflation, okay? And this segment on inflation, I have a guy. His name is Kevin Brady, and he's a politician from the 8th Congressional District in Texas. He started in '97, so he's been around for a long time down by Houston. But the quote is: "Inflation destroys savings, impedes planning, and discourages investment. That means less productivity and lower standard of living." Well, that's a great quote because there are people that feel that right now. And so I have a quote every single time, but I want to make sure who the person is. I want to know if I'm talking about something. There was about create tax diversified sources of income. So I wanted to make sure that Roth and Roth conversions were in there. I wanted to make sure that something was in there about um, um, qualified charities that you can put money into. I mean, there's just different ways to save on taxes. Do I go into depth on it? Not at all. But when you study your notes and you really understand them, it's just like a big game. I mean, you're not going to go in and not have any practice before that big game. If I'm going in and I'm paying, $500 or $1,000 for that radio time. Maybe it's $3,000 or $4,000 a month for everything included. That's a big deal. I used to say I could buy a used car for that. I guess you can't buy much of a used car now for that, but it's still a lot of money. It adds up, and I want to do the very best I possibly can. So I certainly prepare to do the very best radio show I can.
So the question came up regarding subject because you mentioned you were talking about the same subject. So did I miss it? Did you talk about this? You make kind of not a script available, but kind of show notes. Did you go over that already?
I just mentioned, yeah. I mean, I did, but you do have show notes, and I get them from the production company, and they're pretty darn good. But I bullet point them. I take out stuff, put stuff in. Sometimes we'll have radio clips. Like a couple weeks ago, our segment. I always have an intro, and like this intro was coming up on today's show. We'll outline the most common financial risks in retirement and offer some solutions to help avoid them. That and much more. Stay tuned. And then there's some ads and stuff on you, promoting you. But we talk about market volatility, inflation, and then there was some inflation. There's quite a few inflation quotes, and then Federal Chair Jerome Powell, publisher Steve Forbes. So there's just some different. Megan Horniman, Chief Investment Officer at Verdance Capital. So then we talk about inflation, but they do the clips, and then the color guy Steve, our co-host, comes on. Do you think they're right on, Dave, or not? And then I say what I like or what I don't, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. And just to give you an idea, here's the show notes on the second half hour of that show. It talks about preparation is key when it comes to big events like retirement. And then we do those quickly, but we talk about saving money, paying down debt, keeping cash as stash, make good Social Security and Medicare decisions. Is it worthwhile to stay on the sidelines right now with cash? So those are general, but really pertinent and kind of important information. I normally talk because Social Security is a hot button. So if you're not talking Social Security, you're not going to get as many calls. So that's why I coach you up on it. And we do Medicare because we have a Medicare shop. But if you do know Medicare, then I wouldn't mention Medicare very, very often. We do though because we have a Medicare shop. One of our other big people that on radio, he has a big Medicare shop too, so he uses it. But yeah, but I keep those show notes very updated, and there's brand new show notes every single week.
Probably notable too, Dave, that you run your show notes. You have your securities license, so you have to run your show notes by your broker dealer.
Yep.
You ever have any problems with them on that?
No. In fact, just to let you know, Steve, you don't know this, but Mike out of your compliance department with your wealth management, he just called me on one of the people who's IAMS that does radio. He just said, hey, I'd like to, keep the show notes on file just in case you have an audit and so forth. So yeah, I just started sending that to them. So I have not had any problem. I will say this: the first 2 or 3 that I did, there were certain things they did not like. Like if I say guarantee, if you're an RIA, or an insurance agent, not a big deal. If you have a broker dealer, I have to say, just remember that whoever you're working with, that income stream or that guarantee is only as strong as the company that backs it.
Sure.
Okay. So, but it's easy to say.
Yeah.
And they said, we want you to say that. There is one time, right when I started, I thought I might have to redo the whole show, but I didn't. We just cut out some stuff and it worked just fine.
Good. Yep. Well, that's like you said, it's recorded, so you can edit it. If you don't like something that gets said, you can stop and re-say it. So it's not like you have to be perfect during the course of the recording. And Steve Siddall, I know he does a great job. Having heard how you guys interact, I have definitely seen that improvement from first show to third show or fourth show. It seems like you guys hit a stride.
Yeah, it's like a dancing partner. It's like a partner in tennis. I mean, right when you get together, you're both, you got to feel how each other is and going through. And we're better. We're better than what we were 3 years ago or 2 years ago. But all of our people, in person, he's extremely good at what he does. I mean, he's a pro, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Theodore wants to know what you mentioned, the appointments you got. What is your appointment hold rate? So when you call the folks and say, hey, I saw you set an appointment, I'm sure that's kind of what you do. How does that? Did most of them hold?
8 out. Oh yeah. of the original ones, I would say 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10.
Wow,
So
that's pretty good.
but of actually who sets up the radio, it's probably 9 out of 10. But we might lose one more, on the actual appointment itself. It could be
Got it.
for a lot of things. It could be they got COVID and they're out 3 weeks and now they just don't have any interest. But you know what? It's not a perfect system. If you find a perfect system, they're lying
Call
to
us.
you. Yeah,
You go.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, but it's a good system and it's
Sure.
solid and it's proven. There's a
Yeah,
track we run on, and the track is very good. Yep.
good. Jerry wanted us to repeat the monthly cost. Probably good to just go over again how the monthly cost works because, I mean, obviously the biggest variable is the cost of the radio time, but there are some other costs, so it'd be good to go through those again.
Yep. Cost of radio is the biggest cost. Production is the second biggest cost. Then you've got the call center, and there's no cost for me coaching you up on Social Security because thank you, Steve. You and IAMS, Insurance Agency Market
Sure.
Services, you pay for that service to me for the client. And the reason, we talked about it. The reason you do that because if your advisor or your agent knows Social Security, the chance of them doing more business with IAMS is high.
Yeah,
High.
geometric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what you're doing is you're just up paying and you're hoping you're getting the return on the back end, which has worked out very, very well. So those are really the costs. And you know what? If it's a very small station, it probably is $2,500 all in. If
A
it's a
month.
medium, a month all in. And if it's a medium-sized station, probably 3,500 to 4,000. If it's a big station, it's going to be more than 4,000, but you're just getting so many more appointments too. But 3 to 4,000 for most people. That's the budget that we're looking at all in for radio per month.
Yep. I
Yep.
see that a couple people have not voted yet. It's okay to put no, by the way, just to put no on that poll. If you don't have interest, that helps us. Otherwise, we're not sure, and then we'll probably call you. But if you know that you don't have interest, please check no on that poll. Otherwise, give us a yes, or we'll likely give you a call to confirm or unconfirm. And that call will probably come from Brady. So a couple more questions here, David. I know you've got a couple of appointments you have to hit. So as you look at radio as compared to seminars, because I know you do both
Yep.
regularly, what do you see as the major difference between the two? The cost of radio and a seminar is about the same. Would you say? Do you spend about 3,000 to 4,000 on
Well,
a
we,
seminar?
we charge for our social, as you know, Steve, because we run everything through IAMS, but proprietary. But $2,700 and $2,750. Most radio will be a little bit more than that. But if you do a dinner seminar for 4,000 or 4,500, which we did for years,
Mhm.
that would cover the majority of the radio costs for majority of the areas. Is there one better than the other? It's kind of like, is an orange better than an apple, or is a banana better than a pear? I will say this: the ongoing cost of radio, because you can't just say, hey, radio station, I want to do one this weekend, and then we'll do another one in a month. You can do that with seminars. I'm not saying that's the best thing to do, but you can do it. Radio, you need to keep going weekly, weekly, weekly. So it's a little slower to start building, but once it builds, radio brings in more business than seminars do. Seminars is an easier out of the gate marketing to do. So I do them both.
Yeah.
And a lot of, you know what, if you see big radio guys, almost all of those guys in the United States do seminars too. Isn't it? It's interesting. And they normally not many people start with radio. Most people start with seminars and then go to radio.
Mhm.
So I would say this: when we talk, we'll certainly talk about radio, but we could talk about seminars too. But radio, neat niche. A lot of people are in seminars. Very few people are doing a radio hosted show right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't take much to understand why that would be, because when you went through the process of the setup and you had
Sheesh.
already, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
a
it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. But see, that's a great point to bring up because I've done all that. They're not
yes,
recreating the wheel. It's
oh,
a
absolutely.
track. It's
Yeah.
a plug and play. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not really good, just running through numbers, and people say, well, you do this and you do that and then you get this number and you get that number. But when you look at radio and you look at what has happened in your business, with Retirement Boss Radio over the last 3 to 4 years is probably, other than learning Social Security and maybe, kind of equal to it, that's probably been the most major game changer in your career, would you say?
Well, I would say seminars and then radio. Well, we went right through. It went right through the pandemic when we
True.
started radio, which was back about. And actually, it's about 3.5 years now on radio, but in 4 years, and I've been in the business for 41 years, and I've always been a good producer. I nearly doubled my production from 4 years ago. And the only really thing that I'm doing differently is radio
Yeah.
now. And I had done radio for 11 years way back when, but that wasn't so much to get business. It really was to get well known, brand myself, brand my company, which I did. But now my goal, I mean, I'm educating people, you darn right, but our offers are strong. For the first 5 callers, if you call during the show, if you call in the next 15 minutes, you're going to get this, 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 this. I mean, we want action. And you know what? When they call in the call center, they say, hello. They'll say Retirement Boss Radio, Dave Pimper Calton. And they say, yeah, I was listening to the show. I said, great. Hope you really enjoyed it. Very first, next thing you know what they say? Let's get you on Dave's calendar. That's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is not rocket science. We want an appointment. And then we call everybody back on Monday morning. So the great thing about this, it's recorded. You can record when you want to, the hour, the time, within limits of when the co-host. But so you don't have to be there in the station, which I was the first 11 years. Second thing is that they're all set appointments because your calendar is your electronic calendar is filled out, and it's in the hand of the call center, not the actual name of the person. It's just, let's say, like right now, say I'm doing they know that I'm doing that I'm out from 10. It's supposed to be to 10:30, Steve. We're running a little late today.
Yeah.
Say from 10 to 11. They don't know it's a webinar or a seminar or an appointment. The call center just knows they can't set a time in that hour's time. And then I want a half an hour between every single appointment. It gives me time to type in all of my notes and mail them out of email and so forth, so forth. So it's we got it down to a science. And can you go in and put polish on that and form it to the way you do your business? Of course you can. Do you have to follow the show notes to the T? No. But should you follow them pretty closely in the beginning and then make some small changes? Because we know they work. I mean, when I get 6 appointments last week, which is a lot, I've not done that very often. Why change that track?
Right. Yeah.
You bet.
No. Well, we've talked about the appointments, and obviously that's the goal. But you have to. I've got to believe that the value of the radio too, in getting you more name notoriety in your area, has contributed to your success in seminars and probably made you more referable. And certainly it's nice when you see people and they say, hey, yeah, I heard you on the radio. I mean, that they now know what you do. They know that's a kind of a invaluable side benefit to what we're doing on the radio side. So really, really good stuff. I don't see any more questions that we have here. Is there anything that you want to add as we close out today, Dave?
Well, just as we're closing, I want to just reiterate a touch on that topic you just said about giving you credibility. I cannot tell you how many times KFAB, which you know, Steve, because you live in Omaha. We have an office in Omaha also, but it's the big station. It's the big, they call it the blowtorch, 50,000 watt AM. That's the biggest AM station you can get. You can't get any more than 50,000 watts. And it's the biggest station in Nebraska and covers a big distance. Well, what happens is tons of people listen. It was the Rush Limbaugh station, and it's Fox and all the conservative, but it's the big talk station. I cannot tell you when people said, "Well, you know what, Dave? I'll tell you right now. If KFAB endorses you, then I feel comfortable with you." Well, does KFAB endorse me? No. They take my monthly payment. They give me airtime. Do I like him? Yeah, right. And I met I was on there in the very beginning when I started. The Radio Media Buyer also got me in on a 15-minute on on talk radio with the big local airtime host in the afternoon. I think it was Beck, I think was his name, if you remember that guy.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't Glenn Beck, no, because he doesn't. But it was someone that did that afternoon
Oh,
show
he's a
from 2 to 5.
local guy. Got
Yeah,
it.
he was a
Okay.
local guy. Yeah, I can't remember his name. Anyway,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Becca was his name. Bacca. Becca was his last name. But anyway, what happened was I got on, talked with him, went back and forth about the economy, about the markets, etc. But what happens is it's like KFAB. If he's on KFAB, well then he's endorsed. And of course I'm not. And I laugh on that. I'll say, well, I won't say I'm endorsed, but I enjoy. I always say I'm not endorsed, but I'm not saying endorsed, but I really enjoy being on radio with
Mhm.
KFAB. But it gives you that credibility. That's the difference of what seminar doesn't. Coming in with the seminar with that briefcase in your hand, you have some expertise there, but you don't build the credibility like if you're on television or radio in particular. And I'll tell you right now, it does give you that, and it's a side benefit. It's a side benefit to build that image.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yep.
a valuable side benefit, I would think so. Well, good stuff. I don't see any more. Hold on just a second. I guess there is one more. The questions from Jerry again: are the media choices limited to conservative talk radio? The quick answer would be no. The good news is that Jared, who does the media buying, he has a pretty good sense of what's going to be the best station that has the most listenership in any given demographic. So if you tell him, "Hey, I'm in Winston-Salem," he and his family have only been in the radio business for how many years, Dave? Probably longer than even you've been in the business, I would think.
Yep. No, the grandpa was 65 years. In fact, you know this? He has a little Christian station in Omaha that they still own.
Oh, I didn't know
A
that.
small station. Yeah, they do, which is pretty
Yeah.
interesting, you know. But they have and then they've done very well in the radio business. Just that Jared, who runs our media buying, has done it for 25 years. He didn't want to have that risk of ownership. He wanted to go in and buy media, which is he's done extremely well, and I'm very happy. We're happy to be connected with him. Yep.
Oh yeah, he does a great job. So he'll just find the best radio station for what you want to do in your area and make recommendations. And then he's really good negotiating time slots, really good at negotiating extra benefits, commercials, and as Dave mentioned, for instance, he got him on with the local celebrity for a kickoff, which is always good stuff as well. So that's the kind of thing that you get when you get with Retirement Boss Radio. You've got all the little pieces put together. And I will tell you all here today, for the right folks, for if you're, a seasoned planner in our business, give me a call. I'd be glad to chat with you about ways that we can help make it easier to get you started in radio. Maybe IAMS can make some commitments to help you because it works. And, we know that you'll look back 4 or 5 years from now and say, that's the best move I ever made.
Yep.
And what's good for you is good for us. So if we can make that easier for you, we would love to have that conversation as well. So with that, I think we better close up before we get in time trouble here, Dave.
You bet. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for their time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it as well. We're here at IAMS to help you. If you have any questions, I didn't give you our number. It's 800-255-5055. Ask for your sales director. You can ask for me directly at 800-255-5055. For those of you that answered yes on the poll, we will get you called very shortly by Brady and get a time set up for you to speak with Dave. Thank you again for joining us. Here it is on a Tuesday. Got a lot left to this great sales week. Good luck on that, and let us know how we can help you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye now.